James, thanks very much for joining the Double Triple Tech Sales podcast. Before we jump into all things, I guess you now moving into tech sales, if you don't mind just doing a bit of an introduction of who you are and I guess where you're based and also what you're currently doing in your work.
Yeah, absolutely. So, thanks for chatting with me. My name's James, obviously. Currently an account manager at a wine distribution company. So I've been in the wine industry for coming up on 5 years now. Based in Melbourne, been in Melbourne for 2 years. Before that, was working in wine in New Zealand for 2 years. And yeah, just made the jump over to tech now. So
Super exciting. And I know we caught up. So you joined Double Triple, it was early May, and we got introduced actually, like you just got introduced to Double Triple through a mutual connection.
yeah.
Yeah, so that was pretty cool. What was that experience like? Just because I know obviously you were looking to get into tech, and then you actually went through a recruiter that personally we know, and George helped me land a role at MoveWorks. But how did that first conversation go? And then sort of gone through the program at Double Triple.
Yeah, so it was really interesting talking to George to start with because he was obviously very keen to help me get over into tech, but like off the rip from the start, he was very excited for me to talk to you guys and very excited about what you guys were doing, and I think his energy just carried through to me joining the program, which was really awesome.
No, that's awesome. I remember chatting with George, like even just before I was even looking to leave MoveWorks Service now, and he was sort of going in to do his next thing. And it was just like we then got chatting a lot again as well. But very cool because typically, I don't know your exact experience before coming into Double Triple, but very much, I guess you could have gone along this by yourself or alone, but you sort of joined Double Triple, and I think potentially at the start you could have got told that you were just going to be an SDR or BDR to get started. I guess the outcome that you've landed is an account executive role as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That was prior to joining the program. It was very much going to have to take a step back in what I was doing. I'm an account manager at the moment, but I control my whole sales pipeline, the whole sales cycle. So effectively an account executive. But I was getting prepared to take a step back into an SDR role to get into the tech space. So to have landed an account executive role is pretty awesome.
Yeah, totally. And it was cool to see that experience because I know when we were first chatting, and for the folks sort of tuning in, you obviously joined Double Triple, but then we got to spend some good quality time in person as well at the Melbourne catch up. And I just remember having like a good conversation there with you, and you already had like a lot of business acumen. And did you do university at all before like growing up?
Yeah, so I did a BCom majoring in international business and marketing.
Yeah. No, I definitely could tell sort of through our conversation and how you were looking at like the landscape of like the global macro trends and how business all affects each other. That was very much like our conversation early on. But yeah, it was awesome outcome to get the account executive role. And we'll jump into like how you landed that because I think it's actually really unique to the first person that's come through Double Triple and how you've done that. It's like different to other people, right? Because I really believe you secured the role in person, which was really cool. I guess why the exact transition now, wanting to get into tech sales and moving out of the wine industry?
Yeah, look, I love wine. I love the wine industry. It's been great to me, but it's pretty capped. There's a very low ceiling for potential earnings and opportunities. And also, you know, opportunities in the industry, money, but I'd quite like to travel with work as well. I quite like the opportunity to go over to somewhere like a London or a Europe or America as well. And the wine industry doesn't offer that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, really tech has always been on the radar and now just made sense that, I just turned 26. So a fairly pivotal point in my life.
No, that's awesome. I remember I just cannot get this out of my head when you said it because I totally resonate with it. But it's like when you said, it's basically like if you get a law firm, you can kind of go into any industry or business unit. And then we were talking about like if you become an account executive for like 3 to 5 years, it really can pivot into any sort of sales industry, I believe. Because it's like one of the best industries to get into. And the sales motion in tech is very, one, business acumen, but then you're understanding very complex organizations of how you're deploying software and how that really impacts the top line profit margins for the business as well. So I thought that was really cool of why you wanted to get into tech as well. In terms of, I guess, pivoting into so basically you've, I guess, going through the process now of how you landed the role, when you came into Double Triple and sort of those first few weeks, what was that experience like for you joining the program?
Yeah, it was awesome. I think the first thing that stood out for me was the community. Uh, yeah, everybody's chatting, everybody's getting around each other, which is really awesome. And then for me, it was just sort of rebranding myself,
Mm-hmm.
going over the basics, CV, LinkedIn, and then starting to look at, you know, some learnings on the tech industry, but also on the interview process and how to approach jobs. That was the initial look into Double Triple.
Nice. Did you originally apply for any roles before joining Double Triple in tech?
No, I hadn't. I hadn't.
Yeah, nice. That was good because that's like I know, and I don't know like how exactly close you were with George, but for the folks listening, when we mentioned George is like a really well known and like works with really great tech companies placing people in there. So it's like you would have had trusted advice from him early on in that process as well. In terms of I guess like joining Double Triple, were there anything that was going to stop you from joining, I guess, or any doubts before joining the program?
I think the main doubt with doing something like this is it was still quite largely unknown. I was very much going off the recommendation of George,
Mm-hmm.
um, and just making that commitment to invest in yourself was something that I spent a little bit of time thinking about, but it became very apparent that it was going to be worth it. So I think just making that jump to invest in myself was the only thing I really thought about.
Oh, that's awesome. So I guess in terms of when you joined, right? So for the folks listening, it's been about I guess 6 weeks end to end from when you started to landing a role in tech, and I feel like at the start we met, and then I think I texted you. I was like, "Hey, here's two opportunities. Like, jump on them straight away." And I think you could have taken either one, really, like what you wanted, but we definitely went with the opportunity. I think that was the best outcome for sure. Um, and it was quite ironic when it was all happening because it's pretty unique in Australia, I think, for tech companies to run these assessment days. And I call them assessment days, but every tech company calls them different because they're different in terms of if they're looking for AEs to join or SDRs to join and what that whole process looks like. Very much this experience was, I guess, more of like a get together and why the company was investing in people that actually weren't coming from original tech sales background, which I thought was really cool. And they obviously partnered with Double Triple. But tell us about your experience through that whole journey, because I don't know if you've been a part of even some sort of recruitment experience like that before, but it was really cool for me to watch that sort of all unfold.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome. Yeah, like you said, it was very strange for me because like the day before I had a phone call with their in-house recruiter.
Mm-hmm.
So I came into it obviously knowing a few of the people working there, but also it did feel like a bit of an undercover mission because I knew it was going to be an opportunity to meet the people that were going to be interviewing me down the road. So on the night, I got to introduce myself to the recruiter in person, but also got to introduce myself to a slew of management and people that I did end up interviewing with, the week after, which was very interesting, but extremely beneficial. It was, we joked on the night. I was speaking with the two managers that do my next stage interview, and we were joking about just having the interview there and then in person. It was awesome. It was a very unique opportunity to be able to do that.
No, it was really cool. And it was personally, like I overheard a few of the questions you asked, even the stakeholders in the room, and how you networked the room. So I've been a part of like large networking events, and actually, James, I was chatting with Gabe. Like you're a very deep. What's the word? Philosophical? I don't know that word, but it's like you ask very good questions, and like even to me, when you ask me questions, I'm like, oh, that kind of skips the high level. What did you have for dinner? conversation, and you ask a really insightful question that's interesting for me to talk about. I also heard you do that to the other people in the room as well, because typically in these networking events, there was like 25 people there, right? And like, how do you stand out in terms of like them remembering a question that you actually asked that they were interested in, talking about? And I felt like you did a very, very good job at that. But it was really cool to see the in-person event. There was like 25 of us there, and typically what they are trying to do in those activation days is like they want to hire people within, I guess, like a 4 to 7 day turnaround business working days after they've met all the stakeholders there. So basically, from your first meeting to kind of a contract provided to you has been like 10 days, which is really cool to see that cycle go quite quickly. And then obviously they had like a panel and a Q&A session, which was insightful, right? Because then you were having to interview with those folks, but they were sort of opening up about their personality and the company as well, which was really cool. And that's what they did it for. But no, that's awesome. So I guess in terms of like, we've sort of spoken about like, where you've come from, James, and then sort of the interview process of how you landed that. And just to highlight, for these assessment days, like I just really want to double down on, you made the effort to go in person. You also met the talent acquisition person before, like you almost didn't need to because you already had the next interview lined up. But I do really think that like secured the whole job interview of making that effort to go in. And for anyone like seeing these getting advertised, I highly recommend going to do those. In terms of the experience going through the wine industry and interviewing there, and even just like the whole mechanics of how that business operates versus like even when we went into the tech company and potentially the whole experience, what was the differentiator for you even in like walking into the office? Because I have to say they had like one of the best offices like I've seen personally in Australia for a tech company as well.
Yeah, I mean, for starters, like the fact that you're working out of a big office, my day to day is I might spend a day in the office a week, and I might only spend 2 hours in the office when I'm at the office. I'm on the road constantly, so being in an office is different. I think the biggest takeaway I took from the difference between the wine industry and the tech industry when I was there is, I guess, the hunger and the drive for excellence. Like there's very clearly a standard that is excellence, and being around people that are all at that standard and driving to achieve excellence is something that I don't necessarily think the wine industry has. I think it's a lot of people that have plateaued. So it's cool to see that difference in real time. They brought on some of the top performers to speak on that panel, and yeah, it was pretty awesome to hear those guys speak about what they're doing and how they achieve it.
No, I agree. Like the managers speaking and the top performers, it was, and I've been in those environments and I've sort of talked about it. Like I've been in others because like we were both in different sales industries right before, now you're getting into tech, but like that experience of truly seeing like the innate hunger in people of like wanting to be the best in their game as well. And like they keep everyone to that standard. And then if you sort of fall, it's like, well, maybe the attrition's there on the bottom, but it's like constantly keeping the talent very high in the company. So that was definitely a standout for me when being there as well, which I like being a part of that, right? So that was really cool. In terms of your lifestyle and I guess where like you want to head in tech, like what's sort of your long-term vision of now making this move and where you want to be in? I know it's like hard to say in 5 years, but I guess like what is sort of the next 12 months and then maybe 3 year look for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the first 12 months is just hitting the ground running, and excelling. It's going to be a lot of learning in the first 12 months, but I think taking that on the chin and really getting my head down and stuck into it. I think that's the goal for the first 12 months. The role is a SMB account executive. So I think within 5 years, however long in the future, looking to either go commercial or eventually enterprise. The long term goal, I will settle down in Australia, but I'd love to take up an opportunity, like I said before, to go to America and do 12, 18 months over there, or go to London, somewhere like that. I think that's a pretty cool opportunity that the tech industry offers.
Totally. Yeah, you just be able to get transferred to Utah. And
Yeah, yeah.
I had that opportunity at MoveWorks too. And it was like, I was very tempted to move to America. And it came up like every year for me. I was like, do I want to do it? Do I not? But it's like really cool that you can do that transfer, right? Like obviously a role might need to come up, but it's almost like I do think tech companies, if maybe it's not like a title change, but just changing regions is a completely whole new growth in terms of like how they do business. And we discuss this, like every region does business different, and you get to be able to learn those different aspects to that as well. What are some takeaways for you, James, that you potentially learned through the interview process that you could share as insights for anyone listening?
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway for me was you can be quite direct. You know, these are guys, these managers that are looking for people that know themselves and know what they want to do and know the company. And I think I potentially spent too much time being not polite, but too nice with what I was saying. You know, you can be very direct with these guys. That's what they're looking for. So you know, I mean, I'm very lucky. I think I interviewed quite well, but I probably would be more direct if I was to do it again.
That's great insight because even if I think about the first talent acquisition, and there's two parts to this. When people are chatting to recruiters or talent acquisition people, internal recruiters, if you're not like direct on who you are, like what you want, they're confused, and why would they bring you in if you're not clear on your vision? And then and you probably experience this, but people in double triple, it's like more you go up the interview process, the people you're talking to are more senior and they almost have less time and like less bullshit tolerance, right? So they are just wanting like a direct conversation to really feel out like, is this person no fluff, and they're really clear and confident on what they want in the future as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome. What's in terms of overarching, like we always say, like, you've now landed the role, and now it's like, we want to be number one rep. We even have like a session tonight at 7 p.m. like we call them like alumni at Double Triple, because it's like once you've landed the role, you sort of go into a new cycle of now learning more of the sales process. But what would be some of the maybe like two key takeaways that you've taken away from, I guess, like the modules or the sessions? I know you've joined a fair few sessions with Gabe, the live sessions. And is there any like key takeaways that you've found helpful through the process so far?
Yeah, it is a good question. I think I think the thing that stood out to me the most is you can do it. You know, it is daunting jumping across industries, but you've had some sessions with some people that have come from real estate from all over, and I think having the confidence to just do it. Don't procrastinate, don't hesitate, just do it and do it properly.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got a better chance than not of getting what you're looking for. I spent a long time sort of just settled, like thinking about it, but not doing it. And I think just do it. Just
Mm-hmm.
have the confidence, have the will to go out and do it. Is the biggest thing.
For sure. And to round out, just on that topic of like maybe not coming from the industry, but it's like this, and just for the folks listening, like this company, they literally had a night on, and like all the managers talked about like not coming from the tech industry, and like they actually wanted people not actually coming from maybe the SaaS industry, because every tech company as well has like their own way of doing things, and they almost not want to mold you into their process. But if you also come with like you're like maybe a set standard of how other tech companies done things, they maybe can't shake out old habits, right? And so they just wanted people that have done sales before and showed like grit and tenacity that they can handle, I guess, like the velocity and the deal cycles as well. And so that was really cool to see. But it's also like making sure that you find those right companies that are looking for that. And I think how you do that as well is like, I think you can do like research on some of the reps that are already there and just seeing like their background, where they've come from, and just like identifying those tech companies that are like best suited for you as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. James, any I guess last like question from me, but if you were talking to someone exactly like, you 6 months ago, is there anything that you would tell them, or I guess even tell yourself 6 months ago before where you are today?
like I was saying before, just the resources are out there with something like double triple to make the change and make the change successfully, efficiently, and effectively. So jump on an opportunity like that and do it. There's no point sitting around thinking, oh, I could, maybe I should. If you're having those thoughts, then you know where you are. You're out the door. So make the jump, and do it now, because you'll be so happy that you've done it.
Nice. That actually reminds me of when actually my manager was about to leave the current role that I was in as well, to leave the company. I remember him saying, which totally makes sense. And now this is how like I reframed to how to make decisions. But it's like, if you spend more time convincing yourself to stay somewhere, it's time to go. Because it's like the energy of like convincing yourself every day to stay, or you could get happier or whatever. It's like there is something better potentially out there, but then you can always go back to what you were doing anyways, right? So I think that's a great frame of what you sort of said as well. Amazing, James. Well, thanks very much for joining us on the potty, and we really appreciate your energy and your spirit. And we've now met twice, and I know you help out heaps of other people in the program, and you're very you network with the rest of the community. I think you highlighted at the start too, is like communities there ought to help each other, and you had help through the interview process, even from someone that came through Double Triple that was at that tech company, and you just see this almost like flywheel effect happening across the board now as well. So really appreciate your energy, time, and investment into Double Triple as well.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Kayla. It's wouldn't have happened without you. So thanks to you as well.
Appreciate it, James. See you on the next one. We get everyone back on in 6 months who started tech, and then you can give a big update on how the role's actually going.
Yeah, absolutely.